So my son is on strike and corporate cannot meet his demands. Hey there, Shell here. Welcome back to my little corner on the internet. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've added some drapery behind me. I do plan to add additional decor so that you're not looking at what looks like a construction site behind me. But one, I've got to figure out exactly how to make that work, given how things are set up in here. And two, I spent yesterday morning working on my son's room because it is a disaster. So my physical capabilities right now are a little limited. Speaking of children, is it just me or have kids completely lost their minds this month? I don't know if there's like a full moon or something going on in the stars, but it's been a challenge. We've had a rough few weeks. My son is on strike. He's in the middle of a homework strike. We did manage to get one assignment turned in this week, so yay us. It's been like knockdown, drag out fights to the point where I finally looked at my husband and I said, I can't do this every night. So we just let it go that he wasn't doing the homework because it wasn't worth what we were putting both myself and my son through trying to get this homework done. And then the homework would not get done. So that's what I've been dealing with. And it's really been since the new year that things kind of took a turn for the worse. I mean, obviously the school year is very different. There's so much going on and so much that is different. And I really feel for these kids this year. Like, this is such a difficult thing to have to deal with when you're at such a critical age. And so I get that and I understand that. But since the beginning of this year, it's definitely taken a bit of an ugly turn. And I started really having to take a look at things and see if there might be something else going on. Now, one thing that I need to mention is that my son is on the autism spectrum, and I did get his permission to mention that before I filmed this. But what that means is that it is especially challenging for him when routines change, or if something disruptive occurs. And, you know, there have been significant changes to his routine this academic school year. And especially with it being wintertime now, I mean, it's 5 degrees outside right now. Like, we are stuck inside. We can't go anywhere because, for obvious reasons. And so we're kind of just stuck in the house all day. But there were some signs that it started to concern me, and it was more than just adjustment issues. So some of the signs that I was looking at were things that I have experienced myself, because I do deal with depression, as I mentioned in my previous video. So I've, gone through a lot of therapy. I've read up a lot on it. And depression and I have been really great friends for as long as I can remember. I think probably about 2nd grade is when I started experiencing depression. And so I've had quite a lot of experience, and it's one of the reasons why I started jumping on things so soon, is because I remember how I felt as a child experiencing that and not really understanding what was going on or why I felt the way I felt. and why I just seemed so different from everybody else, and I felt so alone. And the one thing that I have always tried to do for my son is to give him a better experience than I had. So as I began to notice some slight changes, I started paying some more attention. And these are things where it really required some actual attention to detail analysis, comparing it to what he was doing beforehand, because a lot of it is an exaggeration of things that he was doing before, especially with him being on the spectrum as well as dealing with anxiety. So what are some things that I was looking at when I was trying to decide if my son was dealing with depression? The first was that he was becoming easily agitated, and that was looking like you could not say anything to him without him losing his mind. He would flip out, he would scream, he would run into his room, he would be slamming doors. Now this is, again, not completely atypical behavior for him. What was different was how quickly we would reach that level. It used to be that I could see it coming and try to fend it off before we reached that kind of like red alert danger zone. And then it started to be where he would go from 0 to 100. There's no warming period now. There's no yellow light. It goes from green to red. And once it's red, it's bright new light bulb in the signal red. So that was one thing. And a lot of times, especially in children, and especially in males, the depression can be experienced as anger. So rather than the weepiness that often gets associated with depression, it actually is more like a rage monster, where it's like you're dealing with a volcano that is having explosions constantly, but it's unpredictable explosions. So that was kind of my first clue. The second clue was he started isolating himself, like very significantly. Again, not a huge difference. He does like to be in his room watching his TV with the door closed. He's a very introverted kid, so I get that. I don't usually have a problem with it. I understand that he needs a space, he needs to be able to decompress. But typically I can come in, I can talk to him, check in on him. But lately, everybody is, as soon as you open the door, he's screaming at you to get out. He doesn't want to interact with anyone. When I really started suspecting that it was depression, I kind of tried to force him to hang out with his best friend. So bad. So bad. And my friend and her husband are absolute saints, because they have known Matthew for a good while now, and so they're familiar with his idiosyncrasies, and they are very accepting of them, and we're very, very lucky to have friends like them. But he has been where I can't even really manage the emotional outbursts anymore. And they really have been very gracious in dealing with that. And their poor son is like, I don't know what I did. I don't know why he's angry at me. And it got to the point where the last time they got together, I was like, okay, we're just gonna go home. It was early. earlier than what we would normally leave, but I couldn't handle it. I didn't think it was fair to them to have to continue to deal with it. But I remember trying to talk to my son, and he told me, he said, I don't know why I'm feeling like this. I don't know why I'm getting angry so easily. And that was kind of that, that click for me. And I told his therapist that I was really concerned, and that I really did suspect the depression might be a reason for this. And so she agreed to do a depression screening with him, which is a little difficult just because one of the things with autism is that it can be difficult for children with autism to conceptualize things that aren't in the here and now, especially when it comes to emotions. So it's difficult to ask about how he was feeling in an interaction that occurred previously. It is difficult to ask him about situations, thoughts, and feelings that aren't occurring as you are speaking to him. And it is impossible to ask what if scenarios. Abstract scenarios are huge triggers for him. He will completely shut down. If we're lucky, he'll shut down. The other option is it will trigger a meltdown. So those are it. So it can be difficult to try to do a screening. But his therapist did a great job with engaging him. My son did an amazing job with answering honestly. As heartbreaking as it was to hear the answers that he was giving to the screening questions, it did confirm that he is dealing with depression right now. And for me, of course, that's a huge issue because, again, my goal is to make sure that he grows up and doesn't have to deal with the mental issues that I am still dealing with. And so to hear him dealing with depression when he's already got anxiety on, that really hit me hard. And I know, for one thing, depression runs deep in my family. I honestly, there probably was no way that he was going to avoid that one. That's a pretty big ball to try to dodge. I hoped it wouldn't happen as early as it has. I'm sure a lot of it is pandemic fatigue. I feel it. We're all feeling it. I can't even imagine how our children are experiencing it, especially our children who may have a harder time processing these big issues and these big feelings. And there's also the fact that, as I mentioned in my last video, I have spent the past few months in a really bad depression and anxiety episode, and I have to consider the possibility that affected his mindset as well, and that adds quite a bit of guilt. So working through that, but the one thing I'm trying to keep in mind is that I really don't control my depression and my anxiety. It's why I take medication for it. It's because, my brain chemicals don't do what they're supposed to. And on top of that, I was doing what I needed to do to try to get better. And it is not my fault that it took as long as it did to start getting better. And in addition to that, being forward looking and saying, okay, maybe that is what contributed to it, but that doesn't really affect the fact that it's happening now and now we have to deal with it. And really looking at what I need to do to try to bring him back from that and, you know, pull him out of that hole that he's kind of fallen into. So, you know, I'm looking at things like trying to limit screen time, trying to get us on a schedule, even though that's really difficult for me. That is not how my brain works. So that'll be an experience to try to figure out. Really trying to spend some more personal time together, getting him out of his room, even if it means like taking him on errands, just so that he's forced to get out of his room and away from the TV. And really just continuing to try to do the brain fart. I can't think of the right wording for it, but continuing to praise him and give him affirmations. That's what it is, affirmations. And really just hope that this is a short-lived episode. So yeah, you know, parental intuition is one heck of a thing. It's not the first time that I've learned that lesson. It won't be the last, but I'm glad that I stick to my guns, and when I suspect something, I follow up on it. So I would just say, you know, if you think that something might be off, then it's worth looking into, and it's worth asking somebody about it. So, you know, in the comments below, let me know, have your kids been, you know, going through a difficult time lately? What are some things that you've been doing to try to keep their spirits up? And until next time, take care of yourselves and stay well.